Hello and welcome to War of the Roses. I'm Amanda Rose, and each week I am joined by two veteran golf writers to discuss this week's hottest golf topics. This week I am joined by Gary Van Sickle and Mike Perkey. How are you guys? Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm darn near awake. How are you?
I'm good. Mike, congratulations. It's your first time on War of the Roses.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
COVID testing on the PGA Tour has been a hot topic. How do you guys think the tour is handling it and their protocols? Gary, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I don't think you can be too careful, Amanda. We all know that positive tests were inevitable, and we're seeing it. The question is, how many is too many? And every tour player who signs up for a tournament now is accepting risk. How big is the risk they're willing to take? We're going to find out.
All right, see, I agree with that. I think that is really spot on, but they got to stop leaving the bubble. Like, stop going out, stop going to Popeyes, stop going to Chick-fil-A. Like, just stay in your hotel room, you know? Mike, what
you lost me at Chick-fil-A there. Yeah, I was okay with Popeyes, but Chick-fil-A, you have to go to Chick-fil-A.
Mike, what's your take?
Amanda, tour players are a lot like the general public when it comes to COVID-19. There are a lot of people out there who believe that this pandemic is over. It hasn't affected them. Therefore, they can go on and do all the things that they used to do. And the tour players, a lot of them, have that attitude, and they're finding out now that they can't do that anymore. The coronavirus is not gone. It's still with us. It's getting worse, and they're going to have to adhere more strictly to the protocols that the tour's laid out.
I agree, Mike. We just heard Jay Monahan speaking about tightening up some of their, not security, but tightening up their protocols. So it'll be interesting to see who follows it and what happens. But I don't know how I feel about fans coming, as soon as July. I don't think that's a great idea. And speaking of fans, what do you guys think about having a Ryder Cup without fans, or do we just postpone that until next year? I'll go to you, Gary.
Well, I'm going to take a risk here and take my mask off. A Ryder Cup without fans is like Hamilton without an audience. It's just not the same. It's such a big part of the Ryder Cup. It would have been, It would have been flat to try to play that. So they moved it in light of the coronavirus thing. I think that's probably a second good reason to do it.
No, I totally agree with that, Gary. And they postponed the Ryder Cup in 2001 after the 9/11 terror attack. So I really don't think it's that big of an ask for them just to postpone it another year. Like, it's not that big of a deal. What do you think, Mike?
Well, here's another factor that people aren't talking about. The European players who are going to be on that Ryder Cup team who don't live in the United States, all those players and the captains and the assistant captains and the entourages are going to have to quarantine for 2 weeks when they fly over here. And I don't think anybody wants to do that. I totally agree with Gary. You can't have the Ryder Cup without fans. It's one of the biggest events in all of sports. It's not just one of the biggest events in golf. It's one of the biggest events in all of sports. And you couldn't have a Super Bowl without fans. You couldn't have an NCAA tournament without fans, and you certainly can't have the Ryder Cup without fans.
Mike, I totally agree. But, earlier in the week, Rory McIlroy had said, quarantining for 2 weeks isn't that big of a deal, to the European players who may be a bit nervous coming back to the U.S. So Rory McIlroy thinks it's not that big of a deal, Mike, but you think that is going to be a big deterrent. So this week, Travelers Championship is underway. What are your guys' predictions for the winner, and what are your predictions in terms of COVID and moving on to the next week's tournament? Gary, starting with you.
I'm going out on a limb and saying attendance is going to be way down from last year. And what I'm really looking for this week is for the real Jordan Spieth to stand up and reappear, because we miss him. He's got vibes to this golf course. I think Jordan Spieth might get back in the groove, and I think that'd be great for the game.
All right, Mike.
Well, I had originally picked Brooks Koepka before the circumstances of the last couple of days. I'm going to go up a rung on the world rankings ladder, and I'm going to pick Rory McIlroy. He has played fairly uninspired golf the last 2 weeks on two courses that are really not suited to his to his game. But I think the TPC River Highlands is more of a driver's golf course, and Roy's maybe the best driver in the game. And I think once every 3 weeks for Roy to get inspired, I think this might be the week.
You know, I like those picks. However, I think if you're going to pick someone who's won at Travelers like you did with Jordan Spieth, Gary, I think you got to think about Bubba also. I mean, neither of them are winning every tournament at the moment. So it might be interesting to see, put a little wager down on who finishes better in those two. My pick is Abraham Answer. I don't care if it is a driver's course. All 3'7" of him can hit that ball. He hits it straight, and he's such a good player. I think he's got to win. You know, whether it's not this week, it's going to be in the next 4 weeks, but I think Abraham Answer might have it. But that is it for War of the Roses. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm Amanda Rose for Gary Van Sickle, Mike Perkney. Thanks for watching.